Sam's Top 10.
A hero is no good without a villain. Antagonists fuel adventures, often being the guys who burnt down your village, murdered your parents, or are trying to take over the world. Without them, the game's events would have no reason to unfold, and your main characters would probably still be at home, just hanging out. That said, it's surprisingly hard to find good villains in video games. Seriously, when I was writing this list, I found I really struggled to even name the villains in over 80% of the games I own. That's pretty damning. So, let's celebrate the ones that are really special as we count down my top 10 favourite video game villains. A few quick rules before we begin. Number 1, only villains from video games I've played. Number 2, the character must have originated in a video game. Sorry Joker, but you're disqualified. Number 3, one villain per franchise. 4, of course, this list is simply my humble opinion.
Number 10.
Warning, the following entry contains spoilers for Spyro 2. If you've not completed the game yet, which, let's face it, you've had more than enough time, click on the time code below to skip ahead. Let's start this list with a character that embodies everything I look for in a good villain. Ripto is an evil wizard who's accidentally summoned to Avalar via a portal. Once he realises there are no dragons in Avalar, something he determines suspiciously quickly, he decides to take over the realm. He turns up multiple times throughout the game, mostly in cutscenes, and has a clear personality. He's evil, but also quite funny. It's important that the humour is intentional on the writer's part, but completely unintentional on the character's part. You spent the whole game trying to get rid of this guy, and by the end you genuinely dislike him. You're then treated to a pretty decent 3-stage final boss battle, which is admittedly made much easier by me having the super flame here. The boss battle ends with an aerial dogfight, and Ripto seemingly burning to death in a pool of lava. Yikes. Of course, that didn't stop Ripto from coming back again in most of the Game Boy Advance games, as well as Enter the Dragonfly. Ultimately, Ripto's overuse and lackluster impact in those other titles somewhat taints his original and best appearance, which is why he's as low as number 10.
Number 9.
This might seem like a strange choice, and I admittedly debated whether or not Nemesis counts when putting this list together. He's certainly the main antagonist of Resident Evil 3, but he's also a monster of the week. He was created to kill the members of the STARS unit, and that's pretty much it. He has no character arc, he utters one word constantly throughout the entire experience, and he's dead by the end of the game. On the other hand, there has never been such a memorable monster of the week. Nemesis shows up numerous times in multiple forms. He hunts you throughout Raccoon City, is the only enemy that can follow you from room to room, and is entirely unrelenting. There's a paranoia and fear the Nemesis manages to invoke in me that no other villain has. He's fast, strong, and deadly. He'll find you. He'll kill you. He's like a Liam Neeson variant of the Terminator. By the end of Jill's adventure, it's personal. With a missile about to hit the city, Nemesis incapacitated, and only a single door standing between you and safety, the game gives you one final choice. Leave Nemesis to be killed when the missile hits, or finish him off yourself. I always finish the job myself, and it always feels so damn good.
Number 8.
Everyone has their favourite fighting game series. For some it's Tekken, others Mortal Kombat. For me it's Street Fighter. Bison always stood as the final barrier between me and those ending credits, not only in Street Fighter 2, but also the amazing Street Fighter Alpha 3, where he's arguably even cheaper. Now, some might argue you could put any final boss from any fighting game here, Shao Kahn, Heihachi or Inferno, but I would disagree. What elevates Bison, for me at least, are the supplemental materials and lore for Street Fighter. He's an absolute badass in the Udon comics, head of a major criminal organization guilty of murder, abduction, and human experimentation, to name but a few of his crimes. His psycho power makes him nigh on unbeatable, and he's a cocky, arrogant, self-absorbed jerk. This is especially true in the Street Fighter 2 anime movie, which, if you haven't seen it, make it a priority to watch it. And I love using dramatic battle mode in Street Fighter Alpha 3 to replicate that film's final battle. Also, in England, the hand motion he makes during his idle stance is a way of calling someone a wanker.
Number 7.
Warning, the following entry contains spoilers for The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, which, if you're watching this video, you've probably played anyway. In the rare case that you haven't, you can use the timecode below to skip ahead. Talk about an entire game being the build-up to one fight. From the opening of Ocarina of Time, Ganondorf is shown to be a threat, haunting Link's nightmares. He wants to enter the Sacred Realm in order to obtain the Triforce. If he succeeds, he can wish for whatever he wants. To stop him, Link collects 3 stones from 3 separate dungeons and returns these to the Temple of Time. Ready for the twist? Ganondorf was sat waiting for Link to do exactly that. The stones are the key to the door protecting the Sacred Realm. Things don't quite go to plan though. Instead of getting the entire Triforce, Ganondorf, Link, and Princess Zelda end up with 1 piece each. Ganondorf is still able to take over Hyrule and turn it into a living hell, while Link's in a form of suspended animation for 7 years. Upon awakening, it's the player's job to find the 7 sages and then take on Ganondorf once more. This involves an epic ascent up Ganondorf's tower. The higher you climb, the louder the music gets. The hype for this fight is simply unimaginable. And then it turns out to be a glorified game of Pong. It manages to save itself, however, when Ganondorf causes the castle to start collapsing in on itself, prompting a desperate race to escape. Finally, when the rubble's cleared, it's revealed that the Git still isn't dead, transforming himself into the demon Ganon and knocking away Link's Master Sword. Which would actually be cause for concern if I didn't have the big Goron sword. It's done superbly well. If you want to study how to make a player want to take down a villain, this is certainly a game you should check out. I've talked mostly about his depiction in Ocarina of Time here because I didn't follow Nintendo to the GameCube and Wii. I have recently been gifted a Wii, and now have copies of Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. I'm looking forward to facing off against Ganondorf again, and who knows, maybe if I revisit this list in a couple of years after playing more Zelda, he might just move up a few spots.
Number 6.
Warning, the following entry contains spoilers for Tomb Raider, a game that's celebrating its 20th anniversary this year, so if you haven't played it, I'll be bloody surprised, but yeah, timecode, again, you can skip ahead. Natla has the honour of being the main villain in the first quote-unquote grown-up game I ever played. Natla was one of 3 rulers of Atlantis, however she was sealed away for abusing her powers. Natla believes that humanity is in a rut and that she needs to kickstart evolution. She plans to use her army of Atlanteans to forcibly bring about a new era of harsh natural selection. To do this, she needs to bring 3 pieces of an ancient artifact known as the Skion, Skyon...
That dribbling piece of the Skion you want to do.
Thank you, Larson. She needs to bring the Skion to the Great Pyramid. She hires Lara Croft, Larson Conway, and Pierre Dupont, among others, to retrieve the pieces of the Skion, never telling any of them her whole plan. Natla gains points by having a decent backstory, motive, and actually being pretty competent, in addition to, you guessed it, appearing numerous times throughout the game, and having a passable final boss battle where she grows wings. Natla loses points for her depiction in Tomb Raider Anniversary, where she just never seemed quite as threatening, as well as her role in Tomb Raider Underworld, a game with a plot akin to bad fanfiction. Seriously, why can't people leave iconic villains alone? Also, she's her own undoing. Lara refused Natla's money and said she's only in it for the sport. That's fine. Lara was still in. She then retrieved the Skion piece and was going to give it to Natla. It's never stated or implied that Lara was going to keep the Skion from Natla. Lara didn't have any knowledge of the other pieces or Natla's plans, and ultimately, no reason not to follow through on the deal. It's only because Natla sent Larson to kill Lara and steal her Skion piece, which was about to be willingly brought to her anyway, that Lara had any motivation to get one over on Natla, or learned of the other pieces. Well done, girl. Well done.
Number 5.
What can I say? I've been fighting this guy for years. Over 2 decades, in fact. Robotnik might not have a very complicated goal. He wants to take over the world and build his own empire. To that end, he's made an army of robots that use animals as organic batteries, and his character is quite often played for comic relief. But I can't think of someone I've thrown down with quite so often. Seriously, at the end of every single level in the majority of Sonic games, you fight Robotnik. I must have torn through over 100 different contraptions, and yet he always finds something new to bring to the table, another way to challenge and try to beat Sonic. It's really quite impressive. Robotnik is a very flexible boss. Because he relies on machines, the game designers have almost infinite possibilities for ways he can attack you, using a whole host of different patterns and strategies in a wide variety of locations and scenarios. You could take almost any situation and make a boss battle with Robotnik fit. I can't think of any other villain where I could say the same. It helps cement him as a timeless villain that I hope to continue going toe-to-toe with for many more years to come.
Number 4.
Warning, the following entry contains spoilers for Portal 2, which, is there anyone on the internet who hasn't completed Portal 2? Oh, you? Over there, right, okay. Use the timecode below to skip ahead, and while you're doing that, I want you to seriously think about your life choices, okay? It's rare for a game to genuinely surprise me, even rarer still for a game's villain or a plot twist to catch me off guard. Yet, Portal 2 managed to do all of those perfectly with Wheatley. At the start of the game, Wheatley is portrayed as a bumbling sidekick, an idiot. GLaDOS even tells you that Wheatley was once attached to her when scientists realised she was turning a little, well, evil, in order to flood her robotic equivalent of a brain with constant bad ideas in order to distract her and prevent her from focusing. Long story short, Wheatley gets swapped out for GLaDOS as, I guess, ruler of Aperture, and you're happily on your way back to the surface when things turn nasty. Wheatley has a bit of a power trip, and you, along with a potato version of GLaDOS, are sent away to an area of the test facility no one's touched for decades. By the time you return to get rid of Wheatley, he's certainly made his mark on the test chambers. His lunacy actually gives rise to some pretty ingenious ways of countering you, especially during the final boss fight against him. In a weird way, Wheatley's an absolute genius. For making me laugh, constantly surprising me, and having the best send-off of any villain ever. Seriously, one of gaming's most epic moments. Wheatley earns a spot on this list.
Number 3.
Warning, the following video has spoilers for the entire Kingdom Hearts franchise, which, to be honest, even if someone spoils it for you, still makes no sense, because it's such a bloody convoluted series. Anyway, timecode, skip ahead, you know the drill. When you get right down to it, Kingdom Hearts only has one main villain, Xehanort. Ansem from Kingdom Hearts 1 and Xemnas from Kingdom Hearts 2 are just a heartless and nobody, respectively, of Xehanort. Yet, for someone who's just Xehanort's heartless, Ansem left one hell of an impression on me, and is easily the most impactful villain of the series, in my humble opinion. In his search for Kingdom Hearts, he plunges multiple worlds into darkness, unleashes hordes of monsters on unsuspecting worlds, and is generally a vain, self-important creep. His boss battle is extremely memorable visually, if a little lacking in the strategy department. Seriously, you can just mash X to attack while spamming Aero and Cure until he's dead. But what really got to me is just how much damage he does to Riku. Earlier in the game, Riku opened his heart to darkness, allowing Ansem to use and exploit him. Long after the first game, Riku's still suffering from Ansem's influence and trying to fight back the darkness inside of him. Hell, Riku even takes on Ansem's appearance in the second game after pushing himself to the limit to beat Roxas. It's this ongoing effect Ansem's had on main characters at a very personal level through the torture he puts Riku through from game to game that elevates Ansem above the other Kingdom Hearts villains for me. He was also the first big bad in the franchise, so, you know, that helps.
Number 2.
Does this really need one? Seriously. Alright. Warning, this entry has spoilers for Metal Gear Solid. Yeah, I know you've played it, but apparently I need a spoiler warning here, so, time code, yada yada. Natla may have been the villain of the first mature game I played, but Liquid was the first to make me aware I was playing a game I was probably too young for. When I first fought him, he was nothing more than the 80s-inspired bad guy with a cool mech that just wouldn't die. Nowadays, he's a resentful, vengeful clone who feels he's been made obsolete, desperately wanting to reclaim a sense of purpose. Who just won't die. Seriously, he turns up halfway through the game in a Hind D, no, we're not doing that joke, so we shoot it down. Then he reveals that he's been talking to us under the guise of Master Miller for the entire game, that we just activated his walking nuke launcher for him, that he totally let us live and get this far before hopping into Metal Gear Rex to fight us. Q firing several rockets at his face, which still doesn't kill him, followed immediately by a shirtless fist fight atop a broken mech, with Meryl's life in the balance, and stealth bombers about to flatten the whole facility. I'm sure this is meant to be much more epic, but the hand-to-hand combat in MGS1 is kind of primitive. You beat him up, he falls from a distance that even he admits should be enough to kill anyone, and you start to make your escape.
Not yet, Snake!
Oh, god damn it! Yeah, he chases you in a jeep for a firefight that's actually quite infuriating until you realise, 1, there's a second ration if you go back towards Metal Gear at the start of your escape, and 2, you can hold down triangle to enter first-person view mode while on the turret. You're welcome. The fight ends when your jeeps crash and tumble over. Okay, that's got to be it, right? Nope. He limps from the wreckage, points a gun at Sword Snake's head, but collapses before he can pull the trigger, finally having been killed by a virus called Foxdie. Let me get this straight. I shot down his helicopter. I fired missiles at his face. I threw him off the top of a giant mech, and I crashed his car, but it's a virus that finally does him in. He's charismatic, complex, has the whole evil version of the main character thing going on, and has several good boss fights to his name, not to mention a legacy that endures for the remainder of the series. Liquid is easily one of my favourite villains.
Number 1.
Warning, the final entry has spoilers for Ratchet and Clank, both the original game and the remake, reboot, whatever the hell they're calling it. There's a time code to skip ahead, but this is the last entry, so... We started this list with an Insomniac villain, let's end it with one too. Like Ripto, Drek appears multiple times throughout his game. He's humorous, though in a much darker way, and this time the character's much more aware of it. And he has a good final boss battle that follows an absolute gauntlet of a final level. Drek's ambitions are far greater than Ripto's, and he's insidiously evil. Drek's plan is to... You know what? I'll let him tell you.
My race, the Blog, have a small problem. Our planet has become so polluted, overpopulated, and poisonous that we are no longer able to dwell here. But I, Chairman Drek, have a solution. We are constructing a pristine new world using the choicest planetary components available. So, what does this mean to you might ask? Using highly sophisticated technology, which you couldn't possibly understand, we will be extracting a large portion of your planet and adding it to our new one. Unfortunately, this change in mass will cause your planet to spin out of control and drift into the sun, where it will explode into a flaming ball of gas. But, of course, sacrifices must be made. Thank you for your cooperation.
You know what Bowser did to Peach's castle at the start of Super Mario Galaxy? Think that, but yoinking out an entire continent. It's then revealed that Drek was the one who poisoned his homeworld in the first place, that he's making fat stacks of cash from selling real estate on his new planet, and that he intends to pollute this world as well, so he can start the cycle again and become even richer. He doesn't care what he has to do or who gets hurt along the way. Oh yeah, did I mention he hires the galaxy's greatest hero as a henchman? The main character's idol and role model? Ratchet not only gets betrayed by Quark, his innocence is shattered, and Drek's the one pulling the strings. Admittedly, Drek almost lost points for his betrayal in the 2016 reboot, as well as the accompanying film. He didn't seem as threatening or competent, and I was admittedly disappointed that he got ousted in favour of Dr. Nefarious. But then I remember they show Drek destroying an entire planet. It's okay, they evacuated everyone apparently. He's pure evil, he's a joy to watch, he's got a good boss battle, and he succeeds in causing immeasurable, irreversible damage on a galactic scale. Drek baby, you are my favourite video game villain.
And if you don't like it, you can take your whiny, sniveling, snot-nosed populations, form a line behind me, and kiss my... We're still on? Well, turn it off, you idiot!
Do you agree with my list? Are there any entries you feel are undeserving? Likewise, is there anyone I've missed? Let me know in the comments. In case you didn't know, my co-hosts from the British Gaming Podcast, Terry Kane and Richard Savage, have put up their own lists of their favourite villains on their channels, which are on screen now. And, naturally, if you like this video, please share it, like it, maybe even consider subscribing. I've been Sam Webster, thank you for watching.